I hope that you're enjoying this module on costumes and costume design so far. Chapter 7 and 8 in Technical Theater for Non-Technical People and the YouTube video suggested laid the foundation for what I'm going to share here. In the next few minutes we're going to cover some of the costuming department logistics, what to do if you're interested in costume design as a career or a serious side experience, and I'll walk you through the assignment just to be sure that you're clear about that. Really on that part I want to emphasize that I'm most interested in your participation, and don't get caught up with the perfection of it all. It's going to sound a little overwhelming, but really it's intended to be fun, and I think it will be. So first things first, what do you do after after your show is announced? You might be all excited, you think you know some of the characters, you want to start building costumes right away, and my advice is to stop. First thing is to do a little bit of research about the show, the cast of characters, the genre, what your director's philosophy is, and what's the script say. So spend some time getting to know all of these things. Take out the script, scan through it, figure out who is in what scenes and what kind of costume changes there may be, so that you're prepared for that. So step back, do a little bit of research. The second piece of advice is to ask around about some budget guidelines. In my experience, there isn't always a set budget amount for the costume department, but it's important that your business manager knows that you want to know and that you know what he or she is thinking. So just open the lines of communication and get some kind of guidance there. Renting costumes costs a lot of money. And buying fabrics isn't very cheap either. So ask some questions, keep people informed about your intent and your wishes, and know that the 5 ways of developing your costume planning are here, right? And there's no special, it really depends on what your show is, what your budget is, what the philosophy is of your drama club or your theater production company as to how you actually put together your costumes. But there are lots of options, but budget is a really important consideration. So once you know what your show is, who your characters are, how much you have to work with, it's time to start collecting ideas. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. You could do it electronically with Pinterest or maybe a bulletin board. You could do it with just an old-fashioned bulletin board or a sketch pad. But collecting ideas in a central location is very important. That's going to help you to share your ideas with other people and to get their feedback. And that process is critical. It makes sure that you have other people on board with you, so there's no surprises in the end. You're going to see a central theme that I have here is keeping you looking good as the costumer and feeling good, really, amongst the stress of the show, because a show can be super stressful, especially towards the end. Dreaming a little bit, getting feedback, that's all going to help other people be on board with what you have going on. So another piece of advice is to check out your costume closet. And check it out in advance so you know what you have and what you have available. Now, if your costume closet is just, heaps and mounds of costumes, prior to the show season starting, that might be a good time to gather a few volunteers and start organizing what you have there, because otherwise you're not going to really know what's there, and during the show is not a good time to go searching because you're going to be busy with other things. Again, that central theme, keeping you looking good and feeling good throughout the show. So check out what's in your closet. If you have things in the closet, pulling them, that's how they refer to it in the book, and it's how I referred to it earlier. Pulling items from your costume closet is cheap. It's the cheapest way to go. You already have them available, so you can cut them up, you can amend them, you can dye them, you can do whatever it is that you want to them. They're already yours. So check out your closet. You may also want to figure out what special items you want to have to rent. Some shows have one or more complicated costumes, and for those you might want to rent a few of the costumes. So you see the 2 pictures here are from Beauty and the Beast. Our high school production did Beauty and the Beast a few years ago, and it was a huge production, lots of people, lots of costumes, lots of costume changes, and we were kind of in over our heads. And a few of the very special costumes, like the Beast, it was cheaper and easier on everybody if we just rented them, and it kept our production looking really top notch, because we had a really a really good looking beast, if you will, and some of the other costumes we rented as well. So figure out what your show is, and if there are 1, 2, or more costumes that you might want to go and figure out the rental on. I didn't recommend any costume rental companies here because different regions of the country are going to have different options, but just do a Google search and they'll come up, make some calls, ask some other local schools or production companies how they do it. They will let you know. So the next thought in mind is to have a volunteer plan. So something I like to say and remind others of is that many hands make lighter work, right? So involving other people in volunteering to get the effort done is really worth your time investment. But you have to start early with this. So create a plan, figure out what you need, what other people could do to help you, what you want to be responsible for yourself, and then communicate what your plan is. And if you communicate, even if it's not that you need volunteers, even if it's here's what's going on, people are going to be a little bit more familiar with what you have going on and be more likely to volunteer. Volunteers just don't happen. That's been my experience anyway. They don't just come out to help unless they're asked and then reminded and then thanked. And if you do those things, they'll come out again next year and help you as well. So that's my suggestion there. Again, it's all about keeping you sane so that you're feeling really good and positive at the end of the show season and not overwhelmed and stressed. So have a plan. Okay, so in the readings section of the module, you saw that there were some videos, and the intent of that was to help you just gather some information, just build your peripheral knowledge about the kinds of costume designers are out there working Broadway and other theatrical productions. So take a peek at a few of those if you haven't already, and if you already know that costume design is something that you're really super excited about, kick it up a notch and call some local theatrical productions, ask to talk to the costumer, tell them that you're interested, and then just ask them a couple questions. An open-ended question like, how did you get involved in costume design is going to open the door. They'll just start talking because usually adults are very excited to talk about what they do, especially to a young person that is interested in listening to them. So I would recommend that. I think it's a good idea, and it might also lead to volunteer or job opportunity, within their costume season. If you're interested, I would also recommend doing a search on the College Board. This is a great website that has lots of different majors and ability to find colleges that are near to you or far away in particular majors. So if you haven't stumbled across this, or if you haven't looked at it, or if you're really interested in costume design, I found a number of different colleges that offer costume design programs in a really simple search. So you should do that. All right, now on to the assignment. I'm going to just talk briefly here about the assignment, and then I'll walk through an example. So just like the rest of this course, we're going to be working in teams, and one person has already been assigned as the costumer. So the costumer gets to make some decisions here. They're first up. Costumer chooses the show and creates the draft plan, and you're going to do that, costumer, by Friday of this week. All right, you're going to add that to the team discussion area, and then your teammates, your job is to respond to give some feedback to the costumer by Sunday. Okay, the turnaround time is kind of quick, but it doesn't have to be lengthy. Just give them a yay or a nay, maybe some suggestions, a web link to some other ideas, whatever you feel is appropriate. But it's important that you respond. Okay, so costumer, don't feel sensitive to the comments that come back. It's feedback, and that's going to be important. Like I said, that's how the real world works. We throw our ideas out there, and people give us feedback, and then we amend our ideas a little bit. So, costumer by Friday. Sunday, feedback is coming in by, and then costumer, you're going to have another week to finish your plan. So go back to your plan, make some edits and changes depending on what came in, and then there's a couple of other little sections to add to it, and then you're going to submit it as an assignment. So here's what it looks like. Pick a show and describe it. Doesn't have to be long, right? So I'm picking Aida because that's what our school district did. Our high school did this last year. You're going to describe it. I didn't do that here, just in case anybody else wants to pick Aida. Then you're going to list the cast of characters, just the main characters, a little bit about who they are, really one sentence or less, and then a little bit about their the kinds of costumes that you may choose. Then you're going to create a costume board, right? It could be a Pinterest board that you have saved a bunch of things. It could be just a Word document with some visuals on there. It could be pictures of sketches. I don't care what you put in there, just your ideas, right? And that's what your team is going to respond to and give some feedback. So these are all Aida costumes, all right? And these images, some of these images helped to guide what we created for Aida, and some of these images are actually from our production. So you can see some of them look like high school production images, and that's what that looks like. Okay. The final step for the costumer is to add in a little item about budgeting. So if you had just $1,500 for costumes, what will you do? What will you rent, pull, borrow, sew? So it doesn't have to, it's just very brief, 100 words or less. How are you gonna, how are you gonna plan for this? It doesn't have to be specifically how much money is going to each, but just how you're gonna think through that. And then the second item is who will do the helping? So how are you going to recruit and communicate with volunteers? All right, so just what we were talking about, you're going to put your plan in there. And you're going to submit that by the second Sunday. So you have 2 weeks costumer for this final submission. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Please post any questions to the Q&A forum. And I hope you have fun with this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the final submissions.